Galactic Concordat had existed for 12,000 standard cycles, uniting over 300 sentient species across 7 spiral arms in peaceful cooperation. They had encountered methane breathers, silicon-based hive minds, and even creatures that existed primarily as electromagnetic patterns in gas giants. Nothing had prepared them for humans. "Impossible," declared High Arbiter Vexturion, his 17 eye stalks quivering with indignation as he reviewed the survey data. No carbon-based life could evolve on such a planet. The gravity alone would crush their cellular structures, not to mention the atmospheric toxins, radiation levels, and temperature extremes. "The data is verified, Excellency," replied Science Minister Pell, her bioluminescent skin pulsing anxiously. "The humans not only survive on this Earth, but they consider it quite hospitable." "Hospitable?" The High Arbiter's translucent exoskeleton flushed crimson with agitation. "They experience everything from frozen water falling from the sky to molten rock erupting from the ground. Their planet is actively trying to kill them at all times. Yet they thrive," Pell noted with professional fascination. "They've even developed spaceflight despite evolving on what our classification system definitively categorizes as a Class 12 death world." The High Arbiter's central feeding appendage twisted into what passed for a grimace among the Xilaxian species. "Then we must approach with extreme caution. Any creature that considers such conditions normal must be approached as a potential existential threat to the Concordat." This was how humanity's introduction to galactic society began, with a fundamental misunderstanding that would shape interspecies relations for generations to come. The first official diplomatic meeting occurred aboard the Concordat's massive embassy vessel Harmonious Exchange, positioned at the edge of Earth's solar system. The human delegation arrived in a shuttle that the alien observers described in their reports as alarmingly primitive and constructed with reckless disregard for structural integrity. Ambassador Eliza Chen stepped through the airlock with a warm smile, extending her hand in greeting, unaware that this simple human gesture would cause 3 security officials to activate emergency containment fields, and 1 junior diplomatic aide to release stress pheromones so potent that the chamber had to be evacuated and decontaminated. "I don't understand," Chen whispered to her assistant as they waited in a quarantine chamber. "What did I do wrong?" "Apparently," her assistant replied, reading from a hastily provided cultural briefing, "extending one's primary manipulator appendage at high velocity toward another being is interpreted across most Concordat species as a precursor to physical violence. I was offering a handshake. Yes, but according to this, most species evolve from prey animals and maintain strong flight responses. We're the rare exception that evolved from pursuit predators." Chen pinched the bridge of her nose. "So we've terrified them just by saying hello. Fantastic start." The meeting eventually proceeded with both parties maintaining a safe interaction distance of 15 meters. Despite the awkward beginning, basic diplomatic protocols were established and humans were granted provisional membership in the Concordat, albeit with numerous safety restrictions and a mandatory warning beacon on all human vessels, identifying them as Deathworld organisms. Approach with extreme caution. What should have been humanity's grand entrance onto the galactic stage had instead branded them as the frightening new neighbors that everyone watched nervously through their viewport blinds. 6 standard months after first contact, the Zhirriks entered the picture. The Zhirriks were one of the few Concordat species with a warrior culture, having evolved on a world that, while not a death world, had presented enough challenges to develop a species that prided itself on physical prowess. Upon learning of humanity's classification and the nervous whispers about their capabilities, the Zhirrik High Command saw an opportunity to either gain a powerful ally or eliminate a potential rival. They issued the challenge. Commander Zara Voss had not asked for this assignment. She had been contentedly serving as a tactical officer aboard the UEN Defiant when the orders came through. Report to Concordat Neutral Station Epsilon 9 as Earth's representative in an interspecies martial competition. "With all due respect, Admiral," she had protested during her briefing, "I'm not a diplomat or an athlete. Surely there are better candidates." Admiral Hoskins had fixed her with a weary stare. The Zhirrik specifically requested a military representative with combat experience. Your psych profile shows you're less likely than most to accidentally terrify the aliens with, and I quote from our last diplomatic incident report, alarming displays of Deathworld aggression, which apparently includes laughing too loudly or eating in public. Sir, I still don't understand why everyone out there thinks we're so scary. Most Concordat species are technologically centuries ahead of us. Technology isn't the issue, Commander. It's us, our biology, our behaviors, things we consider completely normal. Did you know that our ability to repair broken bones is considered borderline supernatural by Concordat standards? Or that our practice of intentionally consuming diluted poisons for pleasure, they call it our recreational toxin resistance demonstration, has led to rumors that we're immune to all chemical weapons? Voss raised an eyebrow. They're afraid of us because we drink coffee and alcohol? Among other things, your mission is to represent humanity in this challenge without escalating the Deathworlder hysteria, while also not getting yourself killed. The Zhirriks claim this is a friendly competition, but our xenopsychologists suspect it's their way of testing how dangerous we actually are. So I need to be impressive enough to earn their respect, but not so impressive that they form a coalition against Earth? Precisely. The perfect diplomatic tightrope. Good luck, Commander. Voss had always prided herself on maintaining composure under pressure, but as she stepped aboard the transport vessel, she couldn't help but wonder how exactly one prepares for a competition when you have no idea what the events are, what abilities your opponents possess, or even if human physiology is compatible with the challenges. Neutral Station Epsilon 9 resembled a massive crystalline snowflake, with 6 symmetrical arms extending from a central hub. As Voss's shuttle approached, she noted the diverse array of alien vessels docked at various points, some organic-looking, others geometric to the point of abstraction, and at least one that appeared to be primarily composed of contained plasma. The docking procedure took nearly 3 hours due to the extensive decontamination protocols required for human vessels. By the time Voss stepped onto the station, her patience was wearing thin. Her escort, a tall insectoid being with an exquisite pearl-colored exoskeleton, flinched visibly when she emerged from the airlock. "Greetings, human Commander Voss," the being chittered, maintaining what Voss was beginning to recognize as the standard safe distance of approximately 5 meters. "I am Coordination Specialist Tic-Tic-Tac. I will guide you to your assigned quarters and provide orientation for the upcoming Challenge of Prowess." "Thank you, Specialist Tic-Tic-Teats. I appreciate your assistance." Voss made a conscious effort to speak softly and move slowly, having been extensively briefed on how to appear less threatening to Concordat species. The corridors of the station curved in ways that seemed counterintuitive to human architectural sensibilities, but Voss noted they would be quite efficient for species that moved in 3 dimensions more naturally than humans. As they walked, she became increasingly aware of the reactions her presence generated. Aliens of various morphologies stopped their activities to observe her pass. Some retreated into doorways or flattened themselves against walls. Others extended sensory organs in her direction, while a few made what her cultural briefings identified as protective gestures, equivalent to human superstitions like crossing oneself or making the sign against the evil eye. "Is my environmental suit malfunctioning?" Voss finally asked her guide. "Am I leaking some kind of contaminant?" Tic-Tic's antennae twitched in what the briefing material suggested was embarrassment. "No, human commander, it is simply that many here have never seen a Deathworlder in person. There are stories." "What kind of stories?" The insectoid's compound eyes glittered. "That humans can continue fighting after losing limbs. That you intentionally expose yourselves to radiation for dermal pigmentation modifications. That you can neutralize toxins by expelling them forcefully through your oral cavity, along with partially digested organic matter." Voss blinked. "Wait, are you talking about tanning and throwing up? Those are signs of our terrifying nature." "The Zhirrik delegation awaits you in the central atrium," Tic-Tic continued, elegantly sidestepping her question. They are eager to assess your capabilities. The central atrium was a vast space designed to accommodate beings of widely varying sizes and environmental needs. Sections were partitioned with atmospheric barriers, creating pockets of different gas mixtures, pressure systems, and gravity settings. In the standard oxygen-nitrogen section stood a group of beings that could only be the Zhirriks. They resembled upright feline predators with 4 arms covered in short, dense fur in patterns of ochre and black. Their heads featured crown-like bony protrusions that Voss suspected served both defensive and status signaling functions. The largest Zhirrik, wearing ornate armor composed of overlapping metallic scales, stepped forward. Unlike most aliens Voss had encountered, this one approached to within actual conversational distance. "So, the humans send a female," the Zhirrik remarked, its universal translator conveying a tone of mild surprise. "Interesting choice." Voss maintained a neutral expression, recalling her briefing on Zhirrik culture. Gender assumptions would be a poor way to start. "Commander Zara Voss, United Earth Navy, and you are?" "War Champion Crystalline of the Third Dominance," the Zhirrik replied, performing a gesture that involved exposing its throat briefly, a sign of confident greeting among predator species. "Primary representative of the Zhirrik hegemony to this challenge of prowess. A pleasure to meet you, War Champion. I look forward to honorable competition." Crystalline's slitted pupils dilated slightly. "Indeed. Though I must confess curiosity. The Concordat speaks of humans as apex predators of unprecedented capability, yet you appear unexceptional in physical form." Voss had been prepared for many things, but not for having her deadliness questioned. After months of everyone treating humans like walking weapons of mass destruction, being found physically unimpressive was almost refreshing. "Appearances can be deceiving," she replied diplomatically. "So it would seem. The preliminary trials begin tomorrow. Rest well, human. You will need what is your species' dormancy called?" "Ah yes, sleep. A strange vulnerability for such reportedly dangerous beings, to become periodically unconscious and defenseless." As the Zhirrik delegation departed, Voss caught snippets of their conversation. Smaller than reported, "Where are the redundant organs they supposedly, exaggerations by the Concordat obviously." Voss sighed. Somehow she needed to perform impressively enough to earn respect without triggering interstellar panic, all while competing in events she knew nothing about against species with unknown capabilities. Just another day representing Earth to the galaxy. The competition arena was situated in one of the station's 6 arms, a massive space with reconfigurable environments to accommodate different challenge types. As Voss entered, she noted 8 other competitors besides herself and Crystalline, representatives from various Concordat species that had accepted the Zhirrik's open challenge. A hovering spherical drone announced in multiple languages, "Competitors will now assemble for the endurance preliminaries. Environmental conditions will cycle through standard variations. Last 3 competitors to request extraction will advance to the next round." Voss took her position on a designated platform. Around her, the other competitors were making various preparations, one applying a thick protective gel to its exoskeleton, another extending specialized breathing membranes, a third entering a semi-meditative state. Crystalline, stationed at the platform beside hers, performed a series of stretching movements that displayed impressive flexibility. "The first test is typically straightforward," he informed her, with what seemed like genuine collegial spirit. "Simple environmental stressors to eliminate the weaker contenders." "Thanks for the tip," Voss replied, performing her own basic stretches. She'd come dressed in standard issue PT gear, moisture-wicking shirt, lightweight pants, and supportive athletic shoes. Nothing special by human standards, but she noticed several aliens watching her limbering up with what appeared to be morbid fascination. The drone announced, "Preliminary endurance trial commencing, Phase 1, thermal variation." The temperature in the arena began to drop, slowly at first, then with increasing intensity. Voss watched as her breath began to form visible clouds in the air, Around her, several competitors began activating technological aids or biological adaptations. The insectoid being's exoskeleton developed a crystalline frost-resistant layer, while a gaseous entity compressed itself into a denser form. At what Voss estimated was about 10 DGC, 14 DGF, one of the competitors, a gelatinous being with multiple nuclei visible within its transparent body, signaled for extraction. Its platform immediately shielded it in a protective bubble and retracted from the arena. First elimination, Krazak noted, his breath also visible, but his demeanor untroubled by the cold. The Muvarians evolved on a tidally locked world and never experienced temperatures below freezing. This is already unbearable for them. As the temperature continued to drop, reaching approximately -25 DFD, 13 DGF, Voss began to feel genuinely uncomfortable but was nowhere near her limits. Her military training had included cold weather survival, and while she wasn't enjoying the experience, she was perfectly capable of enduring it. A second competitor signaled for extraction, followed quickly by a third. The remaining 7 watched as the temperature suddenly began to rise, swinging rapidly to the opposite extreme. Within minutes, the arena became swelteringly hot. Voss began to sweat freely, her body's natural cooling system activating. She removed her outer layer, leaving her in a tank top and pants. This simple action caused a murmur among the observing aliens in the viewing gallery. "You remove your protective covering in heat?" Krazak asked, his own body now covered in a fine sheen of perspiration that his furs seemed designed to wick away. "It's how humans thermoregulate," Voss explained, realizing this might be new information. "We sweat, and the evaporation cools our skin. You excrete your internal fluids purposefully," another competitor, a reptilian being with iridescent scales, hissed in apparent disgust. "And this does not dangerously deplete your hydration reserves?" "Not if we drink water to replace it," Voss replied, taking a sip from her water bottle as if to demonstrate. The temperature rose to what Voss estimated was about 50 DGC, 122 DGF, uncomfortable and potentially dangerous for extended exposure, but still within human tolerance for short periods. 2 more competitors signaled for extraction, leaving 5. The drone announced, Phase 2 gravitational variation. The gravity in the arena began to increase. Voss felt the familiar sensation of her body becoming heavier, similar to high G training in the centrifuge back on Earth. At approximately 1.5 G, another competitor signaled out. "Surprising," Krazak commented, his voice strained as the gravity continued to increase. "I would have expected the Deathworlder to struggle with reduced gravity, not increased. Your homeworld's pull is already substantial." "We're adaptable," Voss replied simply, her military training kicking in as she adjusted her posture and breathing to better handle the increasing pressure. At 2G, she was definitely feeling the strain, but remained functional. The reptilian competitor abruptly signaled for extraction at what Voss estimated was 2.3G, leaving just 3, herself, Krazak, and a silicon-based crystalline entity that seemed completely unbothered by the gravitational changes. "Congratulations to the 3 finalists," the drone announced, as the environmental conditions gradually returned to standard. War Champion Krazak of the Zhirrik hegemony, Commander Voss of Earth, and Grand Facet Sincor of the Teslalian Lattice will proceed to the next challenges after a recovery interval. As the platforms returned to the staging area, Voss noticed a change in how the other competitors regarded her. The dismissive curiosity had been replaced with something closer to wary respect. "Your species' reputation may have merit after all, Commander," Krazak acknowledged, performing a gesture that her cultural briefing identified as a sign of professional respect among Zhirriks. "I have studied the reported conditions of Earth, but witnessing your adaptability firsthand is enlightening. Thank you, War Champion. Your performance was equally impressive." "The true tests are yet to come," the Zhirrik replied. "And now we feast as is traditional between trial segments. I look forward to observing human nutritional practices." Voss managed to maintain her diplomatic smile, but internally she groaned. According to her briefings, mealtimes had been the source of numerous interspecies incidents. Apparently the simple act of eating, could be the most alienating human behavior of all. The celebration banquet was held in a massive multi-environmental dining chamber. Each species had a designated section with appropriate atmospheric conditions and suitable sustenance. The remaining competitors, along with various dignitaries and observers, were expected to circulate and engage in cultural exchange, from safe distances, of course. Voss approached the human compat food station with trepidation. Her briefings had emphasized the importance of this social ritual, but had been frustratingly vague on specific protocol. She selected what appeared to be approximations of Earth cuisine, synthesized proteins, carbohydrates, and vegetables arranged in recognizable patterns. Finding a small table designed for oxygen breathers, she sat down and began to eat with careful, deliberate movements. Despite her efforts at inconspicuousness, she soon realized she had gathered an audience. "Is it true?" a small amphibious being asked from several meters away, "that humans can consume substances that would be lethal to other species as a regular part of nutrition?" Voss considered the seemingly innocent vegetables on her plate. "Well, some of our foods contain compounds that might be toxic to other biologies. Capsaicin, for example. The defense chemical of the plant genus Capsicum?" A scientific observer's translation device rendered its excitement with higher pitch. "You intentionally consume plant defense toxins?" "Well, yes, we call them peppers. They add flavor." A ripple of what Voss could only interpret as horrified fascination spread through the onlookers. Kraszak approached, carrying his own plate of what appeared to be minimally processed animal protein. "I have heard humans are omnivores," he stated, sitting across from her. "This is uncommon among intelligent species, which tend to specialize." "That's correct," Voss confirmed, taking a bite of synthesized chicken. "We eat both plant and animal matter." "And these?" Kraszak gestured to the small cup of coffee beside her plate. "Coffee. It's a plant-designated beverage containing caffeine, a mild stimulant that helps humans maintain alertness." A scientific observer's device emitted a series of alarmed clicks. "You intentionally consume neural stimulants as part of standard nutrition." Voss was beginning to feel like a zoo exhibit. "It's really not that remarkable." Her statement was interrupted when a server brought a selection of fruits to their table, including what appeared to be an attempt at replicating Earth apples and citrus. Without thinking, Voss picked up an apple and bit into it directly. The reaction was immediate and extreme. Several observers physically recoiled. One small floating being actually lost control of its levitation and had to be caught by a colleague. The scientific observer's translation device emitted a high-pitched whine before apparently overloading and shutting down. "What?" Voss asked, looking at the half-eaten apple in confusion. "What did I do?" Kraszak stared at her with new intensity. "You consumed the reproductive body of that plant without removing the exterior protective layer, without processing it to neutralize defensive compounds. You simply bit into it." "It's an apple," Voss explained, bewildered. "That's how we eat them." "Remarkable," Kraszak murmured. "The stories understated your capabilities." By the time Voss finished her meal, including a small sealed packet of chocolate she'd brought from Earth as a treat, the dining chamber had become a buzz of activity. Various beings were recording her, scanning her, or simply watching from what they considered safe distances. She caught fragments of translated conversations. Direct consumption of multiple plant defensive structures, masticated unprocessed fiber compounds, consumed seeds, which contain the highest concentration of toxins, neural stimulants and relaxants in the same meal cycle. Voss made eye contact with Kraszak, who had watched her entire meal with increasing fascination. "I think I understand now," she said quietly. "What humans consider completely normal biological functions appear extreme to most galactic species." "Your assessment is accurate," Kraszak confirmed. "Though I must admit, even the Zhirriks, who pride ourselves on our physical capabilities, find certain human traits disconcerting." "Such as?" "Your endothermic metabolism requires constant energy input, yet produces excess heat requiring fluid excretion. Your digestive system tolerates substances toxic to most carbon-based life. Your sensory processing allows you to function in extreme conditions." He paused. "And according to the data shared by the Concordat, humans can sustain severe physical damage and continue functioning." Voss thought about how to respond diplomatically. "Every species evolves according to their environmental pressures. Earth shaped us just as your homeworld shaped the Zhirriks." "Indeed. I look forward to the final trial tomorrow with new appreciation, Commander." The final challenge was combat-based, as Voss had anticipated. The three remaining competitors, herself, Krazak, and the crystalline entity Grand Facet Zincor, would face off in a series of one-on-one matches using non-lethal approximations of their natural defensive capabilities. The arena had been reconfigured into a tiered combat ring with various terrain features. A much larger audience had gathered, including high-ranking officials from numerous Concordat species. "The final trial will proceed according to ancient tradition," the announcement drone declared. "Competitors will demonstrate combat prowess while respecting the prohibition against permanent harm. First match, Grand Facet Zincor versus War Champion Krazak." The match was fascinating to observe. The Zhirrik was incredibly fast and agile, while the crystalline being could reconfigure its structure and produce localized gravitational distortions. After an intense exchange, Krazak emerged victorious through what appeared to be superior tactical thinking rather than pure physical advantage. Second match, Commander Voss versus Grand Facet Zincor. Voss stepped into the ring wearing the lightest version of standard Earth military training gear. She had been provided with impact-absorbing gloves to reduce the risk of injury to herself or her opponent. The crystalline being was truly alien, a geometric network of silicon-carbon lattices that moved through coordinated compression and expansion of its structure. It had no recognizable sensory organs, no clear vulnerabilities, and, most challenging of all, no body language for Voss to read. When the signal to begin came, Zincor immediately created a gravitational distortion that made movement difficult. Voss felt her body becoming heavier, her reactions slowing. Drawing on her zero-G combat training, Voss adapted her movements to the changing gravitational conditions. She couldn't match the alien's ability to manipulate physics, but human vestibular adaptability allowed her to remain functional despite the disorientation. The crystalline entity extended geometric projections toward her, not trying to impale as per the non-lethal rules, but clearly attempting to trap or immobilize. Voss dodged when possible and used controlled falls when necessary, converting the momentum into rolling escapes. After several minutes of what must have appeared to observers as a bizarre game of gravitational cat-and-mouse, Voss identified a pattern in the entity's movement. Its restructuring seemed to follow predictable geometric progressions, beautiful in their mathematical precision, but ultimately limited by those same mathematical rules. Humans, fortunately, were very good at breaking rules. Voss deliberately misstepped, appearing to lose balance in the shifting gravity. As the crystalline entity moved to capitalize on her apparent vulnerability, she dropped completely to the ground, rolled beneath its extended projection, and came up inside its effective range. Before it could restructure, Voss delivered a precisely calibrated strike to what her instincts identified as a central node in its lattice structure. The crystalline being vibrated intensely, its structure momentarily losing coherence before stabilizing in a simplified configuration that the judges immediately recognized as a yield position. "Victory to Commander Voss," the drone announced. As Voss returned to the preparation area, she noticed the atmosphere had changed dramatically. The scientific observers were frantically communicating with each other. Several security drones had moved to higher alert positions, and the general audience had withdrawn to greater distances, viewing screens magnifying the action rather than direct observation. "You used deliberate deception," Krazak noted as she approached, but his tone conveyed admiration rather than criticism. "Making yourself appear vulnerable to create an opening. A predator tactic." "Basic human combat strategy," Voss replied, "nothing special. Yet you identified a pattern in a silicon-based consciousness that processes information in quantum states, adapted to continually changing gravitational conditions that should disrupt your neural functions, and calculated a precision strike against a crystalline structure you had never encountered before. The final match will be educational. When Voss and Krazak took their positions for the final bout, the tension in the arena was palpable. The Zhirrik performed a ceremonial predator's salute, exposing his throat briefly while maintaining eye contact, the ultimate gesture of confident respect. Voss returned the gesture, adding a small nod of acknowledgement. The signal to begin came, and Krazak moved with impressive speed, utilizing all four of his arms in a coordinated attack pattern designed to overwhelm through sheer number of striking surfaces. His technique was flawless, clearly the product of generations of refined martial tradition. Voss, rather than attempting to match his speed or strength, focused on efficiency of movement. She blocked when necessary, dodged when possible, and worked to understand the patterns in his fighting style. Like all evolved systems, it had its logic, and therefore its predictability. As the match progressed, Voss began to notice signs of increasing exertion from her opponent. The Zhirrik's breathing rate had increased. His movements, while still blindingly fast, had lost a fraction of their initial precision. "You're not tiring," Krazak commented during a momentary respite as they circled each other. It wasn't a question, but an observation tinged with disbelief. "Endurance predator," Voss replied simply, maintaining her guard. "Humans evolved to pursue prey until exhaustion." "The reports mention this, but seeing it is different." The next exchange was more intense, with Krazak clearly pushing to end the match before his greater exertion became a decisive factor. His attack pattern shifted to higher risk, higher reward strikes. Voss weathered the assault, absorbing impacts on the most protected parts of her body when she couldn't avoid them entirely. A particularly powerful blow caught her shoulder, sending a jolt of pain through her arm. She rotated the joint experimentally, bruised but functional. The casual assessment of her own injury caused a visible reaction in Krazak. For the first time, uncertainty flickered across his features. "You were injured," he stated, his offenses momentarily paused. "It's just a bruise," Voss replied, continuing to circle. "Nothing serious." "You show no pain response." "No point in showing pain. Doesn't help win the fight." This simple statement, completely logical to any human with combat training, visibly disturbed the Zhirrik warrior. Around the arena, Voss could see that the translated exchange had caused a sensation among the observers. When Krazak resumed his attack, his previous fluid confidence had been replaced with something closer to desperate aggression. His strikes were harder but less controlled, creating openings that Voss began to exploit. A quick feint followed by a low sweep caught the Zhirrik off balance. As he stumbled momentarily, Voss closed the distance and executed a standard joint lock on one of his primary arms, applying pressure in a direction the joint was not designed to move. Krazak froze completely. So did every Zhirrik observer in the audience. Voss maintained the hold, careful not to apply enough pressure to cause actual damage. "Do you yield?" she asked calmly. The Zhirrik war champion remained utterly still, his slitted pupils fully dilated. "You deliberately targeted a structural vulnerability. You identified the locomotion mechanics of an unfamiliar species and exploited them, without technological assistance." "It's just a joint lock," Voss explained, maintaining the hold but ensuring it remained non-damaging. "Basic human martial arts. We all have the same leverage points." "Not all," Krazak replied, a new tone in his voice that the translator rendered as something between awe and existential concern. "What you just demonstrated is considered an advanced xenobiological attack technique, requiring neural enhancement among Concordat military specialists. It's literally taught to human children in basic self-defense classes," Voss countered, increasingly confused by the reaction. "Do you yield, war champion?" After a moment of what appeared to be profound recalculation, Krazak performed the formal gesture of concession. "Victory to Commander Voss of Earth," the drone announced. "The challenge of prowess is concluded." The ceremony that followed was notably subdued. Voss was presented with a crystalline trophy that apparently held great significance among the Zhirriaks, but the presentation was conducted with a formality that bordered on tension. As the official proceedings concluded and the audience began to disperse, Kozak approached her once more. "Your species' reputation is well earned, Commander," he said with formal respect. The Zhirrik hegemony would be honored to establish direct diplomatic relations with Earth independent of the Concordat framework. Voss recognized the significant geopolitical implications of this offer. "I'll convey your interest to my government, War Champion, and thank you for the opportunity to participate in your cultural traditions. There is one question I must ask for the sake of my report to the High Command," Kozak said, his voice lower. "The capabilities you demonstrated, your environmental adaptability, your biochemical resilience, your combat analysis, are these representative of all humans, or are you an exceptional specimen?" Voss considered the question carefully, aware of the delicate balance between fostering respect and triggering fear. "Everything I did here," she finally replied, "would be considered basic proficiency for any human military personnel, nothing exceptional by our standards." Kozak's expression underwent a subtle shift that the translator didn't attempt to interpret. He performed a final ceremonial salute, deeper and more elaborate than before. "The galaxy has much to learn about humans," he said, "and perhaps much to re-examine about itself." 3 standard months later, the United Earth Embassy on Neutral Station Epsilon 9 was formally inaugurated. Commander Zara Voss, newly appointed as military attaché to the diplomatic mission, stood beside Ambassador Chen as representatives from 27 Concordat species, including a full delegation from the Zhirrik hegemony, gathered for the historic occasion. "Remarkable how quickly attitudes have changed," Chen commented quietly, "from treating us like walking biohazards to seeking preferential trade agreements in less than a standard year. Nothing builds relationships like discovering your potential allies are terrifying Deathworlders who can identify your anatomical vulnerabilities on sight," Voss replied dryly. "The xenopsychologists have a theory about that. Apparently, most spacefaring species evolve from prey animals or highly specialized ecological niches. They develop technology to overcome their biological limitations. We're among the rare exceptions that achieved intelligence while maintaining our generalist adaptability. So we're scary because we're adaptable. We're scary because what we consider basic, our omnivorous diet, our environmental tolerance, our pattern recognition, represents the combined capabilities of multiple specialized species to them." Chen smiled diplomatically as a Zalaxian representative approached. "Just try not to demonstrate human arm wrestling during the reception." The incident reports from the last time took weeks to process. As Voss surveyed the gathering of diverse galactic representatives, still maintaining their safe distances, but now with professional respect rather than terror, she reflected on the strange new position humanity had carved for itself among the stars. Not conquerors, not saviors, but something perhaps more interesting. The species that made the galaxy's warriors freeze in fear by demonstrating what Deathworlders considered basic